Hi, my name is Daniel, and I'm the Technical Director for RW Supply & Design. Today we're going to be talking about recoat systems, and I'm going to be talking with Micah Loberg, who is a former contractor and now a rep with Loba about recoating systems and specifically their recoating system. So, I wanted to talk about just the topic of recoat systems. I think there's a little bit of confusion out there about what they are and like how they're used on floors, what floors to use them on. And some people probably think of them as just an extra product finish companies sell to put down before you coat with finish. So just real quickly, what is a recoat system?
Simply put, I'd say a bond promoter, a system promoter. We always go straight to the question of how do you prep a pre-finished floor with like micro bevels or saw cuts or skips on, stuff like that. How do you abrade in those those highs and lows? So that's why we came up with a actual chemical bond. So our system is going to actually chemically etch the finish and set up that bond between the finish that was on the floor before, whether it's aluminum oxide or oil. There's hundreds of different finishes that ours works on. So it's just the beginning step for a better foundation for that recoat, because it's a chemical bond instead of a mechanical bond.
So yeah, that would be my next question, is like, in what instances would you use a recoat system? So it sounds like there's a lot of texture to a floor. You don't want to sand that because you've got highs and lows, and you're going to sand off the highs.
Exactly.
Potentially in the floor. You've got bevels, places sandpaper is not going to reach, or you've got different types of finishes, like you said, oils, things like that, that aren't necessarily screenable, buffable. So
the oxides and stuff like that.
Okay.
That's exactly right. I'd be using this on any sort of sand and finish, pre-finished floor, or site finish floors, but specifically for hand scraped, with micro bevels or big bevels or anything like that. You cannot abrade in between each bevel. You can't abrade on all your highs and lows. So this is just a more sure way to be able to give the homeowner, a more successful coat. And I'd say recoating a floor has always been kind of taboo to a degree, and especially if it's been like a restaurant theme or something like that, where you don't know what it's been cleaned with, acrylics or waxes or all that stuff. So all that comes into play for the overall success. But I'd say on a hand scrape floor, skips on or micro bevels, your likelihood of success goes down quite a bit if you're just abrading that floor. It's just impossible to be able to get in between those like highs and lows.
Gotcha. So you said you would use like a recoat system on any type of floor. So does that include just like a regular unfinished floor that's been sanded and finished?
Yep. If I'm going to go and maintain a floor, I'm going to take every step possible to make it successful.
Yeah.
You're going in, you're charging them almost as much as you would for a resand without having to resand, because it's a dustless system. And so it's something you can go in and do in a day, like on a 1,000-footer.
Yeah. Or,
if you're bringing in the scrubbing machine, you might go into that second day, but by following those steps, your likelihood for success is so much higher.
Yeah. Well, which begs the question, like, a lot of guys on a buff and coat, they're going to buy a screen or whatever. Screens are cheap, a few bucks a piece. Why would they buy a recoat system? Like, we're talking about a flat floor, no texture or anything like that. Why would they buy a recoat system over and above just a screen that costs a few dollars? Is it just that for sure bond?
Yeah. We live in a day, where we're following systems and stuff like that, and we know more and more that just a screen isn't going to necessarily make that bond, especially if you're dealing with like cleaners that we shouldn't be using and stuff like that, which of course goes into the prep along with that. And for our system, we're going to want you to go in and probably scrub the floor. You're going to want to go in and clean the floor, with our remover, and that helps break down dirt and debris and the, a little bit of grease and stuff like that that's on the floor. It's not necessarily going to take away an acrylic cleaner or waxes and stuff like that, but that would go into a heavier stripper or something like that.
Gotcha.
But that goes into just the prep of it, as far as like making sure you do your due diligence and test the floor.
Gotcha.
You can do the crosshatch test, and if you're on a couple thousand feet and you got big money on the floor, you should be going in the week prior and doing a couple crosshatch tests and pick a couple sections. And
yeah, so let's talk about that. So let's get into the nitty gritty of your system.
Yep.
So what's your system called?
Contact, 2K contact.
2K contact.
Yep.
Okay, so with 2K contact is the first step. Let's say I'm going to do a floor. I'm going to use 2K contact. Is my first step to test the floor for contaminants and things like that, or?
I would, if it's a floor that's been sitting for 10 years, try to start the detective work and try to decide or ask them what they've been cleaning the floors with, or what their cleaner's been cleaning the floors with, or whatever, and try to get down to that detail as quick as you can. Usually even just walking in and testing with your finger, you can see if there's residue buildup and if that wipes up easily or not, or something like that. You can get acrylic tests to go in and test for acrylics, but that's going to be probably more for like your restaurants and commercial applications, because they have like a commercial cleaner coming in and cleaning that on a weekly basis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out what they've been cleaning the floors with, and then from there.
What's a red flag that somebody's been cleaning the floor with?
Anything that has a wax in it or an acrylic is always going to be like a deep red flag, and I try not to name drop too much on that. Not trying to beat anybody up, but there's certain cleaners that are going to cause a residue that could possibly be your bond breaker, or more than likely going to be your bond breaker.
Gotcha. What about like oils, like furniture polish oils and?
Yeah, that's an absolute no.
Okay.
That's probably our number one problem. And even from just like overspray, like they're cleaning their cabinets and then just over the years, it's getting, it's penetrating, impregnating the floor, it's impregnating the coating itself.
Gotcha.
And so over time, that can be a problem. And usually you'll have a bond issue, like say in your bay windows where they're spraying cleaners and cleaning the windows, or like I said, like their tables or their cabinets or something like that.
Gotcha.
So you'll get it in like a funky spot that you weren't testing. So I'm always testing in like those kind of random, like in the nook, or even where like they're not walking as much, like in the closet or something where it's just getting built up over the years. And so I'll kind of test, like on 1,000 square feet, I'll probably do like 3 different like tests on it.
And when you say test, like what's the test you're running?
I'm gonna clean it how I'm gonna clean it with my remover. I'm gonna apply the contact, and then I'm gonna apply Duo, or our 2-component finish on top. I'm gonna let that cure for 72 hours. Usually wait for the 4th day, go back, and then I'll do my crosshatch test, which is as simple as cutting lines with a razor blade, like a hashtag, and then a clear piece of tape or a duct tape on top of it, and you yank it, and it's either going to peel or it's going to chip and not peel. And that's a pretty good determination on what your success is going to be. And then you can go to the homeowner and say, hey, this is what we've tried. We feel really confident on this. There's still never like a 100% guarantee on this, because there's still areas that might have had some other contamination along with it. But then you can talk to them about, we did the remover, we cleaned your floor, we used the contact and our 2-component on top, and we feel pretty confident that this is going to be a success.
Gotcha.
And they feel better, you feel better, and it's always, to me, it's a great conversation to be having with the homeowner.
Yeah.
The contractor should be like very upfront and confident that they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing for the success of the floor.
Gotcha.
So when I walk in, it's going to be cleaning the floor with remover first.
And remover is a separate product to you?
It's a separate product of ours. It's a cleaning product.
Okay.
And it's just going to break down residue and grit and stuff and help pull that out of the soft drains and stuff like that.
So once you've gone past the test phase, then now you're addressing the whole floor with that process you used in the testing. So that's first step is cleaning with the remover?
Yep.
Okay, so how are you going to clean with the remover across the whole floor?
There's 2 different ways you can do it. If you have a scrubber machine, that's the easiest way to do it. And you're going to go in and just put it in your scrubber machine and scrub the floor. That's the easiest way to do it. I usually clean it twice.
Yep.
Or you can do it with a buffer and a scrubber pad, and a wet vac, shot vac. So, which is more difficult to do, but I've done it. We've all done it. A scrubber machine, I always recommend just go rent one. If you're going to do it, just rent it and invest in that couple $100 for the day or whatever it is. It's not even going to be that. But you can do it with a buffer and a scrubber pad. Ours is a green pad. And it's a rougher pad, and so it's going to help. It's going to just activate everything and help, break down the grit and the grease.
So real quickly, how would you use the pad on the floor with the remover? With
your buffer.
Okay. Yeah, like walk me through what that looks like if I get on a floor with the pad and the buffer.
Yep, I have like a spray bottle, like a pump sprayer or something like that with me, and I'm usually have that in one hand or hanging off my handle, and I'm just literally like spraying it all over the floor. And you're actually getting it to a pretty deep slurry. There's quite a bit of liquid on that floor. You don't want it necessarily too dry or too wet. There's kind of a sweet spot, and then your second person is going to be vacuuming that slurry up as you go. And then you're just causing new slurry with your pump sprayer or whatever.
And you're buffing with that green pad on the slurry. And then when you say vacuum up, is that using clean rags?
I'm using like a wet vac.
Okay.
And then I'm literally just vacuuming up that slurry.
Gotcha.
And this is absolutely the generic way kind of to do it. But just so everybody knows that they can do it, you don't have to go rent.
Right.
Not everyone has access to like a big box store.
Let's say you don't have a wet vac. Can you just wipe it up with rags? And
you could, and it's going to take longer. It's going to leave a residue.
Yeah.
And you're going to know when that residue is there that you still need to clean that residue off. So you just keep cleaning it until that residue is gone.
Gotcha.
So you could do it that way, but it's going to be a little bit more time consuming. I'd say spend the $100 on buying like a cheap shop vac at a box store or something.
So then after you've gone over it with the remover, do you have to clean up, go over it with normal cleaner or anything between that and the contact?
Yep, I usually hit it twice with my remover. I hit that twice whether I have the scrub machine or my buffer, and then it's going to leave like a little film on the top, and then I just use our regular Loba cleaner. And I just clean that until that residue's gone. And then you can go literally straight to the contact from there.
So then you've got the contact. What does the application of the contact look like?
The application for the contact, it comes in a quart, so it's not very much liquid, and that goes 500 feet. We say 500 to 600, but good luck getting 600 out of it, especially on like a textured floor. But 500 is what I really want you to be at, which is you're stretching it. And so we either use like a 10-inch microfiber pad, or we use our 60/80 roller, which I highly recommend, the 60/80 roller, and you're rolling it thin, thin, thin. Like it's just, as soon as that chemical hits the surface, it's doing its job. You do not need a build coat or excess finish or excess contact on it. And so you're rolling, you're working it, you're really working it, making sure you're not leaving a bunch of excess on. I do it in a paint tray. The bucket's a little bit more of a hassle to get that last little bit of liquid out. So I always work out of a paint tray personally. But that's one of those things, like once a person does it, then they, can evolve it how they want to evolve it. But.
So this is not like putting finish down. This is a fourth the size of a finished container going every bit as far as a gallon of finish would go.
Yeah, it feels weird, telling people thin, 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 thin after I'm always like heavy, like, soak the floor. Everybody knows that I'm always pushing more and more and more. So this is where it's like, nope, less, less, less. So.
Gotcha.
But it's, just keeping in mind that this is a chemical that's softening the finish. It's a chemical, whatever it touches is gonna do its job. So. Be careful with your cabinets, tape off cabinets, stuff like that. Anything with a film finish, it's going to react exactly the same.
Gotcha. So,
just being careful with that, and knowing that as soon as it's wet and looks wet, it's already doing its job, and just keep moving.
And what's the dry time? How long are you going to wait after you put that down?
I'm 3 hours minimum. I like 3 to 4 hours. That's the one thing that you could kind of, if you jump on it too soon, if that doesn't dry and cure out the way it's supposed to cure out, you might have a reaction when you start coating. So 3 hours minimum, even in our dry climate. So like if you're on a 2,000 footer, you're more than likely going to be cleaning the floor and applying contact today, and then coming back tomorrow and dropping your finish tomorrow.
Is there a certain time you have to get on it with your finish by?
I like it within 12 hours.
Within 12?
You know, yeah. Within 24, you're good, but within 12 hours of that. So if you leave, you know, at 2 in the afternoon today and come back in the morning, it's absolutely no issue.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
So then we've got the contact down. Now we're ready for the finish. What finishes can you apply at that point?
Our 2 components.
Okay.
We prefer it to be Duo or Super AT.
Okay.
So our regular 2 component or our ceramic is what we want you guys using on it. And the reason for that is that the 2 components are so much higher and solid that that's also going to be a bond promoter in the end. So that gives you another percentage of success, you know, more likelihood for success.
Gotcha.
So it's all going to work together for that.
What about invisible?
We're not really approving invisible on that.
Okay.
Right now. It's a little bit thinner viscosity and stuff like that, so we're really trying to get that build.
Okay.
And different, you know, it's just a different component.
Gotcha. Okay. So if you're addressing a floor and you're going to use this system, what kind of repairs would you want to make beforehand? Like, let's say it's been 10 years, it's a decently trafficked floor, there's some scratches, gouges, or things like that throughout the floor. Like, how do you want to address those repairs before you start your recoat system?
That's a good question. Yeah, a couple guys I think bounce around a little bit more or a little bit back and forth on how they do it. Personally, I have you do your touch-up, stain, and throw a coat on top like before you start the process. So go in even the morning of or something like that, or the day before, and do your repairs then.
Okay.
Like if there's a worn out pattern that needs to bring color back on it, go ahead and take care of that like the day before or something like that, and get some finish on top of it.
Okay.
And then go ahead and move on. I don't think it's absolutely necessary to put finish on top, but personally, I think it's a better idea to go ahead and get that build up. So then you don't have like a drier area, you know, something like that once it pops up. But
so if you have raw wood exposed, you're using a stain marker or stain or something to touch up, hide the raw wood. Or let's say it's natural, you're using like a sealer finish to seal that off before you start your recoat system. And then your preference is, in addition to the stain, put a coat of finish over the top so that the build looks consistent across the floor.
Yeah, that's kind of my theory on that.
Okay.
I'd rather you get that build kind of back up again. So, you know, overall better success. Or you're going to end up, you know, depending on if you're committed to 1 coat or 2 coats. So you can 2 coat it as well, depending on how worn out it is as well.
Sure.
So that might play a factor in your prep on that too.
Gotcha.
So each job might have a different rule to it, you know.
Gotcha. So then it also, in terms of red flags, like if a contractor were walking in, I think we talked a little bit about this, but your immediate red flags are going to be what they used on the floor, like oils, waxes, polishes, acrylic, anything like that.
Yep.
What other red flags might you look for? Anything besides those?
That's really it. And you know, unless we get really detailed into like if there's checking in the floor, if it was engineered or something like that, just making sure that you're covering yourself to not be on the hook for something like if a floor was already falling apart. Yep. But I'd say, number one is making sure you know what that floor was cleaned with. And running that test, and usually the homeowners try to be as honest as they can. It's not like a pointing fingers thing. It's like hey, this is how we know what we need to do to prep your floor based on what you're cleaning this floor with. So the biggest red flag is always going to be commercial sites. That's where you have no idea what that floor's been cleaned with, and the people running the office probably don't know what that floor's been cleaned with either.
So it sounds like your system is truly a sandless recoating system. You're not sanding the floor at all. So like even after you go through the whole process, some contractors are really going to want to feel like they're going back to the old tried and true method of, I also need to throw a screen down or maroon pad or something. So you're saying you do not need that.
Completely. It's like completely in your head that you want that. And I get it. And I still have plenty of guys that are like going in and buffing the floor before. So
Yeah.
And I'll go, okay, go ahead. That's cool. It's fine as long as you're still using the system.
Yeah. So like you're not going to wreck it, but
Totally.
you're also wasting the time.
Yeah.
Essentially. So, okay. Yeah. So the question is, guys are always going to find creative ways to mess things up.
Yep.
Myself included.
Yep.
How is somebody going to mess up your system? Like, what are the easiest pitfalls for them to avoid?
Besides the not testing for chemicals, it would be jumping on it too soon after. Like rushing, not letting the contact dry for that 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
If you jump back on it in an hour or two, and it's not cured out, it's not cured out properly, you're definitely gonna have some fisheye issue. You'll know immediately.
Yeah.
So and that's when I get the call and I'm like, when did you put it on?
Yeah.
Well, we went to lunch and came back and I'm like, yeah, that's not long enough. But yeah, I'd say the main thing is gonna be, the two main things are gonna be not getting the chemical off. Mm-hmm. That is the bond breaker, and jumping on the floor too soon after you apply the contact.
Okay. Do environments like high humidity environments affect the dry time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In every instance, that's always going to play a part.
So if I'm in Houston, Texas, I need to let it dry a little bit longer than Denver, Colorado.
I say from what I've dealt with across the entire country, or even in other countries, is that 3 to 4 hours is totally safe. Mm-hmm. That's like a very safe across the board number.
Yeah.
For no matter what your humidity is. And we are in the hardest, driest climate pretty much, Utah, Arizona. But, we are in a tough climate in Colorado, and I still say wait that 3 to 4 hours.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, but I feel like it's a really safe number to go by.
Okay. Do you have any advice for how a contractor can talk to their customer about this, given it's not 100% guaranteed you're going to get finish adhesion? Like how should they tell a customer that, and then also maybe build that into potential pricing or something like that?
When I was a contractor, I always kind of went into it as we show them we're doing everything we can to make this successful. Mm-hmm. If it's not successful and we have to pull out the big machine and start sanding, then of course that should be a conversation. You go, hey, at that point, we'll put some of that money back into the refinish of it, and understanding that it's the communication with them, understanding that we're really doing our best to, not to call it a Band-Aid necessarily, but we're really doing our best to salvage this thin layered engineered floor or something like that without having to tear it all out or whatever.
Gotcha.
Something that's not sandable. We're just doing our best to give you another 5 to 10 years kind of a deal.
Gotcha.
But I think it's mainly just that communication with them, I think is the biggest part. Communicating with them that you did your best to set it up for success, but also there's still variables that might come into play.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate you answering those questions.
Anytime.
There's a lot of confusion around this topic. I get a lot of questions about it from guys. I think, like I said, a lot of people think it's just another product to sell somebody and don't understand the purpose behind why they would use a recoating system. So
always reach out, reach out to your rep. If it's me, please reach out. And I really try to get on the job with you and get on that first job, and then you can kind of see firsthand on how we want you to do it. It makes you feel a little bit more confident in it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, appreciate it. Thanks for giving us the info, joining us today, and answering some questions.